Anita, how's your mental health?
Questionable at all times. You know this.
Yeah, how's the mental health of your children?
Also a little bit tricky. Can I tell you my experience in trying to find therapists for myself and my kids, Mel?
Yes, please.
Okay, this is how it goes. You ask around your friends and your family for a referral for somebody who's nearby. You finally find somebody who sounds like they might work for your family. You give them a call and you find out that A, they're not accepting new patients, or B, they have a huge wait list. So you start over again and you ask people if they know anybody who would be a good therapist and a good fit. Finally, you find one, you go and you meet with them and you figure out that you don't actually like them that much. But it's been so much work to find somebody who you can go to in your area that you're kind of stuck with them. Well, do you have any ideas for how to get around this?
I do, because guess what? I've actually had some therapists that I have found on my own, which involves what you're saying. Sometimes I remember one time I was like 3 hours in the bathtub on my phone looking through websites. I was such a prune at the end. But I have also had the experience with working with BetterHelp. And it was like, I don't want to say too good to be true, but because it is true, but it's like amazing because I was matched with my therapist within 24 hours.
And you didn't have to go through all of that other ridiculous process of trying to find somebody. And here's the cool thing too, is if that person didn't work out for you, you can just switch and say, and it's not like you're committing to another years long search for somebody who you're going to jive with.
It's true. And I lucked out, or maybe just BetterHelp is really good at matching people together because I never had to change my therapist. I loved her. Perfect fit for me. And I know that some of our friends have used BetterHelp and they've had to change therapists, and boom, same day, you can change.
Easy peasy.
You can ghost your therapist. Get a new one.
I love this idea. BetterHelp is one of our sponsors. If you use our promo code trybetterhelp.com/WWDN, you get 10% off your first month. And we totally recommend it.
Yes. Get some therapy. That's trybetterhelp.com/WWDN. Anita, guess what?
What?
I have started doing online therapy.
Okay, you told me about this. You're doing it with betterhelp.com, right?
I sure am.
Tell me more about it. How does it work?
Okay, so I filled out a questionnaire and then I was matched to a therapist really quickly, like within 24 hours, and we were already communicating.
Ooh, how do the sessions actually work? Is it video conferencing or what?
Yes, you can do video conferencing, you can do a phone call, or you can use the allotted time to instant message with your therapist. So say you're not feeling really great about speaking and you would prefer messaging, or you're in a place where you can't speak, you can still do your sessions there.
Interesting.
It's kind of awesome.
So how's it been going?
It's been going really great. I love how easy it is to communicate and how it's not dependent on where I live and where the therapist lives in order to help me with my needs, like with my grief stuff or anxiety or whatever. So I feel like it's a really great service, and I think that other people should do it.
So, Mel, obviously you've done lots of therapy in the past. So how does this compare to those experiences?
I am such a fan of this online therapy, I have to tell you, because I didn't have to find a therapist and hope that it worked out. I don't have to pay $150 per session, and I don't have to drive an hour to my session and then an hour back. I'm a big fan. It's very convenient.
It sounds like a great idea, especially during a pandemic. It sounds like a great idea anytime, but especially right now when people are stuck inside their house, or if people just don't want to drive because they're lazy like you.
Totally. Or if people have 4 kids like you and they want to die.
Totally true. So we're really excited because we have a new partnership with BetterHelp.com, and our listeners can get 10% off of their first month of counseling if they sign up at, what's the website, Mel?
Try BetterHelp, HELP.com/WWDN, which stands for Widow We Do Now.
Amazing. I am thinking that I should sign up too, Mel, and see if it's going to work out great for me like it's working out great for you.
Yeah, and you know what's awesome? They do individual therapy, they do family therapy, and couples therapy.
Well, couples therapy, yeah.
So when you and I get in a fight, our first widow-wife fight, we can go to BetterHelp and get a session. And just a reminder, this is not a crisis line and it's not self-help. It is professional counseling done securely online.
That sounds great.
BetterHelp is available for clients worldwide, and you can log into your account anytime and send a message to your counselor. It's more affordable than traditional offline counseling, and financial aid is available. Widowing is hard, and not widowing is hard. Everybody needs better mental health. Start living a happier life today. And remember, our listeners get a 10% discount off their first month. And again, the link is trybetterhelp.com/WWDN. Happy widowing! Hey, Anita, what's happening?
Hey, Mel. You know, same old, same old, same old, same old.
Now, I hear you have a birthday party today, so...
Yeah, it's my son's 10th birthday today, so we have been going from the very, very early morning until just right now. And can we just chat about that for a second?
Yes, go.
I've been listening back to our past episodes for the last couple of weeks, and inevitably, my kids come and interrupt us, right? And you guys... It's going to happen again. I 100% guarantee you they're going to come and pound on my door. But there are no options in quarantine, right? I cannot send them away. They're not at school. I can't have a babysitter. So I just try and give them as many screens as I can and plead and try and bribe them to leave me alone. But they're not going to. So fair warning to all of you people in the world.
I like it when they join. It doesn't bug me.
I know.
However,
it's not painful for you.
Sometimes we do have audio issues, and everybody that is aware of those things, please be advised that we are doing our best with our audio production. And if there is something that slips in every now and then, it's because there was not audio that I could isolate. And it doesn't mean that I don't know what I'm doing. It means that maybe we had a glitch with the track. Thank you. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. And also for kids, just like, let's just chuck that in there.
Yes. Okay. Now, I think that we are doing so great, Anita.
We have.
Because we have been so good at having guests 2 times in a row.
Yeah. And we're going to have 3 in a row in a few minutes.
We are.
Yeah.
We sure are. But before we get to that, I have something very exciting that I need to say.
What? No, there's nothing exciting right now.
There is here.
Nothing.
Yeah.
What?
We have a new canine in the house.
What? Are you fostering or what? Tell me.
Well, my friend that I'm living with, she adopted a senior dog, and he's awesome. And I got to name him, and guess what his name is?
Friedrich.
Steve.
Steve. This is me clapping.
Yay!
I love it. That was an inside joke between Jason and I that we were going to name our first child Steve.
I did it for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So Steve, the dog, he is a very strange looking dog. He looks like maybe he has part boxer in him and pit bull and bulldog, and he is very out of proportion, and I love him so much. And it's been really entertaining to watch the 3 dogs that have never known anything sad in their life to have to adjust to Steve, who, if you met him, you'd be like, you just broke out of the state penitentiary. Are you going to cut me? It's really amazing. Dog antics.
Does Steve have tattoos?
If he could, then he would.
Yeah, like on his bicep, he's got like an anchor that says mom.
Yeah, sure does.
I like Steve.
And I put on a collar today on him that has skulls on it. It's very appropriate.
That's cool.
So, okay, well, let's get right to it. But before we do, I am Mel.
Oh, yeah. And I'm Anita, and we're just 2 young widows trying to figure out
Widow we do now. Okay. Everybody, I'm so excited for our 3rd special guest.
3 strikes and we're out.
Don't expect anything else after this. This is one of my very, very, very favorite people in the entire world. And our last week's podcast guest, Lynn, is actually part of the same event that this next guest and I are a part of. So I met them both at the same time. This is my good friend, Beckie Menzie. Beckie, welcome.
Hey, I'm glad to be there to see you both.
We are so glad to have you. Beckie, where are you joining us from?
I live in Chicago. We're in a high rise right on Lake Michigan. It's beautiful.
Wow. How are things going in Chicago right now?
Everybody is sheltering in place and pretty effectively. Our mayor has made it really clear that you are not to be out running along on the lakefront. People were not keeping the social distance that she thought they should. And people have been pretty good about following the rules, and our counts haven't been astronomical in the way New York has for such an urban area. They have hit some of the African American communities a little bit harder than they should have.
Boo.
And you're staying safe for the most part.
Gig in Puerto Vallarta that I had to get a doctor's clearance to go to. And they said I could go, just to be careful on the plane part of it. And when I came home, I had to, even if you hadn't been, I had to shelter in place for 14 days.
Wow.
But in Puerto Vallarta, there was nothing called social distancing at all. And Benito Juarez Festival with hundreds of people dancing in very close proximity.
Wow.
Sounds saucy.
It was saucy.
Beckie, explain to us what you do for a living and a little bit about yourself.
Sometimes we assume that unless we had a huge life insurance payout, we don't really need to know anything about investments or even finances. But guess what? A little knowledge of finances is critical for all of us. Maybe your partner was in charge of that stuff, and now you find yourself making all the decisions. Maybe you're mad about that. Maybe I am. Nicole from the He's Gone But the Money's Not podcast is here to help. She tackles financial literacy by telling the stories of women and widows and finance experts, and shares the lessons they've learned as certified financial planners. Whether you know a lot and feel confident in your financial decisions or feel unsure about all of that stuff, there is more to learn. Listen and subscribe to the He's Gone But the Money's Not podcast on all podcast platforms. This ad was paid for by Rockhouse Financial, an SEC-registered investment advisor.
I work entirely. I make my entire living in different ways in the musical and theater industry. And I moved to Chicago 32 years ago, but before that I worked for a large 2,700-seat theater that might bring in the Broadway tours, or that might bring in Steve and Edie or Tina Turner. And so I worked with the artist and had to negotiate Robert Goulet wanted prosciutto, but with no fat on it. And Maynard Ferguson wanted 6 bottles of Cristal. Negotiate that and then deal with the challenges of that world. And then I moved to work for a non-for-profit theater company in Chicago that was really purposeful, but they weren't able to really focus on the important as much as the urgent. And so I decided to see if I wanted to make my living making music. Not necessarily if I could, but if I wanted to. And so I've been doing that for 30 years.
Whoa.
And Beckie is a pianist and a vocal coach and a singer. And she does, tell me if I'm wrong, Beckie, she does cabaret acts in Chicago. She's very famous in the cabaret world, right?
Well, I have performed. I have a duo that I work with, and we have performed everywhere from Carnegie Hall and Jazz at Lincoln Center to senior centers in Berwyn. And I have a girls group. We've done some national touring. We've been in Omaha and different places, New York. And then I work as a piano player for some people, a musical director for some people. And I'm involved often for playing auditions and on the casting teams for different, some theater projects. So
wow.
I would not be the girl who would be conducting Les Mis for 6 years. I couldn't do that.
Yeah, that's a lot of the
Sounds
same
like you're
thing.
busy.
She is very busy. Now, how is it right now? Are you doing anything? Yeah, are you doing vocal coaching online?
It is hard to do coaching because the way I coach the piano and I work in tandem with getting you to do what I want you to do. And there is the delay on so many of these programs makes it difficult. But I'm creating arrangements for people. I am laying down piano tracks. And I have a woman in Washington, the Washington area that I did that for. And I just got hired by a high school to lay down 11 tracks for a virtual musical that they are doing. And I'm so grateful for that work. So I'm grateful for anything that allows me to stay connected musically, because I am not the girl that does charts. I would rather interact with the music than the computer.
I was wondering if you could send me some prosciutto without the fat on it.
Yeah, I would have
That
to
could
have
be-
Mel be the person I would assign to pick off the fat from the prosciutto. And then we'll see what happens to your friendship.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Becky. You're the best.
Whatever I can do.
Oh, man. So like I mentioned before, Becky and I met at the same event that Lynn and I met at. And Becky was a music director like I was. And it was my very first year, and I didn't quite know what the gig entailed. And so she really helped to mentor me and give me some tips and treated me, you know, just like an equal colleague, even though I was a brand new person. She's rolling her eyes right now. It's pretty funny. So I will always remember that. But it was so great to watch Becky work with the kids. She always knows how to pull stuff out of them in a kind way and an encouraging way. So she's like a masterclass in a human package. I love her. And I've seen her in stressful situations and handle things, and like, she's the best.
I'm kind of intrigued by what she just said about how she does her coaching. Like, I kind of want to see, like, I kind of want to be a part of that, you know? Like, it kind of sounded
She could coach
really
you,
cool.
Anita.
Yeah, except for I just heard that it's kind of hard online. So
It's very difficult online because I can't get you to ebb and flow. I can't even keep you in tempo because you will be behind me.
yeah, you couldn't get me to ebb and flow anyway.
Becky, Anita thinks that she should be a professional clarinet player.
I don't think I know.
Yeah, her daughter got a clarinet when she started junior high band. So she just tried to test it out. And so she's thinking about a career in the arts.
Okay.
It's a
Make
natural.
money.
Now's the time.
This is the perfect time for a musician and an artist to really be profitable in the business. So I say go for it.
Do it, Anita. Sell yourself.
I'll let you guys know how it turns out.
Okay. So Becky, when I first met you, I remember that you were preparing to get married. Now, this marriage was not your first marriage. This marriage was going to be your second marriage.
No.
So
I was going to say a whore dog. I'm sorry. I am on my third marriage.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, I'm going to let you. Yeah, okay. What I wanted to say is that I didn't know that you were a widow until my husband died. So would you please back up all the way. Tell us about your life with the men.
Well, there
Go.
And now let me light a cigarette, even though I don't smoke. So my first marriage, I was dating somebody, and think I really I thought it was true love because it was very sensually exciting. I think that we had a very sensual experience, and we were living together, and my sister kind of said, "This is making Mom die, and you don't know what you're doing to Mom." And Randy turned to me and said, "Well, do you want to get married?" And I said, "Okay." So that was kind of my first marriage. And if you had asked me if I regretted anything in my life, there was a time where I would have said, when I walked down the aisle at my first marriage, I knew it would not be forever. And I didn't have the courage or the life experience to just say, why don't we just live together? Because I didn't want to embarrass my mother, my family. He would have been fine. But we got a divorce. We had been, I would say, together for a year and married for a year. We were together 2 years. And then I went off to teach at school one day, and he had said, if you don't want to stay in this marriage, tell me, and I'm going to go. I'm not going to wait around for a divorce. And I had called a lawyer to ask what my options were, and the lawyer's secretary called to confirm, and Randy heard it on the phone. And when I got home, he had packed up some stuff. We had 2 cars. He packed up the worst car and packed a few things and really left most of everything for me. And that is the last day I saw my first husband. I filed by, I don't know what they call it anymore, but I was alone in the courtroom when we got a divorce.
Whoa.
Wow.
Filed by publication, that's what it was. And all through this, I was managing or starting out to manage a wonderful theater. I pretty much went right from college to working in the arts industry. And I did everything at the theater, from start a group sales program to clean the restrooms to star as Miss Mona or different things in the musicals, to work on the musical staff, to make it a concert. We winterized the theater and then would hire artists like Donnie and Marie or the Count Basie Orchestra.
Oh, my favorite.
Yeah. And then I enjoyed being single and was in a long-term relationship but never married. Did never really want to marry again. And started dating a man. I was dating players. I was attracted to men who were not interested in commitment. And because of being a musician. You know, most men who want to date you want you to be around for evenings, and most musicians aren't. And a woman said to me, challenged me, she said, you don't want a nice guy. You like them when they keep you on your toes. And I said, well, you're wrong. And she said, I have a man that you won't give the time of day to, but he's looking for a girl with flash and substance. And so I gave my second marriage maybe a little bit more of a chance than I might have at the start. Well, I wasn't married yet, but that guy, a little bit more at the start. And it was very important to him that we get married. And so in my second marriage, we got married because it was very important to him. Well, I mean, and then I was at that point living in Chicago and making my living, whether that day I would go out and play for Syracuse University when they're in town auditioning high school students to get into college there, or musical directing Nonsense Here, or playing cabaret was becoming very vibrant in Chicago, and I tended to be one of the go-to musical directors, and learned a lot from that. And then had a singing partner, and so I was doing a lot of different things. I figured the smartest marketing thing for me would be diversification, because the people who couldn't do several things didn't earn a full living. And then we get into Earl's death.
Go for that. So now, how long were you, and how old were you when you married Earl?
I would say I was in my young to mid 40s, because all the deaths, there were several deaths in a row that happened right when I turned 50. I moved in with Earl on 9/11, 2001.
Oh. If that's not a portentous date, I don't know what is.
It's ominous. That's also Scott's birthday.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
There was a point in that marriage where, because he very quickly after we got married got some health issues, Crohn's, and he was always diabetic, and several things that were going on with his health, and needed a heart, not transplant, but a different heart valve. And all of that happened right around the time that we got married. So I became a caregiver rather early on in that marriage. And so it wasn't always an easy marriage.
So how long was he sick where you had to be caretaker?
Well, I'm going to say 6 years. And The how the quality of him being sick was different, but he had just had a lot of things going on with him. And during that time, before it got worse, I thought, should I be in this marriage? Am I designed for marriage? And I picked a year date, and I told myself, I'm going to give this a year, and I am going to be the absolute most best wife. Sorry for that phrase. I'm going to give this marriage 100%, and on a year I will go back and evaluate what do I want for my life and what should he deserve for his life.
Wow. I'm so glad that you're being kind of honest about that, because I think when we look back at things, we tend to gloss over and make it all like bright and rosy. But the fact of the matter is that often things are not rosy and they're not perfect. And we kind of have to sometimes own that and not pretend like everything was like the best ever, even when it wasn't.
Yeah. So I would say that the fact that it wasn't a soulmate marriage or the last 4 or 5 years, I pretty much took the bulk of the financial burden. He was not really working. Our marriage was, he would be up he watched TV. I would get up and do sessions in the living room and do work, and he would sleep in really late, and then he would come to bed late. So we did not, he pretty much went from the bed to a recliner in the den. And I would come home maybe from a 1:00 a.m. gig, and he'd be in that lean back chair. We got rid of that recliner sofa pretty quickly.
Oh man, well that's a lot of stress too, because if you're a self-employed musician, you're taking every gig that you can get, and that's exhausting even if you're not a caretaker or in a strenuous marriage. How did you fare during that time?
I didn't realize I was taking the bulk until after his death, because I just took on what I thought were certain bills. And as I went through his bills, I realized I had taken on the majority of the bills. I also was terrified that I would lose my home, which I love, and then found a secret mortgage, that secret mortgage was sustaining him. So that not only did we have the mortgage that I was covering and was really trying to pay down, but all of a sudden I had a second mortgage, and I found that out fairly quickly after his death. And you have so many things going on in that world.
Like what the heck? Who has a secret mortgage?
Secret mortgage. Oh, backstab. Oh.
Well, I bet there are more people that do. The problem with Earl's death is that I was out of town getting a theater up and running with a marketing media plan, or just getting a theater. I was out away from home, and Earl was never without his phone. And so the day of opening night, I called him 2 or 3 times a day, and I called him the day of the season opening because I would be leaving the next day, and he didn't answer. And Earl was not somebody who wouldn't call me right back. He was attached to his phone. And so that day I started calling and calling and calling. Oh, they were going to amputate my mother's legs. And so I wasn't calling saying, how you doing? My mother had an illness, and I was calling saying, call me. They're going to amputate Mom's legs, which had a family history for us. And he wasn't answering. So I stayed at the theater till the opening of the show, tried until 4 a.m. And at 6 a.m. I called the man who owned the theater, and I said, I'm all done. You don't need me there today. I am leaving. Something is wrong with Earl. And I got in my car and headed for a 2.5-hour drive back to Chicago. And I called the condo and asked the garage if his car was there. They ran up. I called back. They said, yes, his car's there. I called the office and I said, can you send somebody up to knock on the door and see if he's there? And he There was no answer. So then I authorized the condo to use the spare key or to get into the house, and then called back and they said, we need your approval to break in. They said the chain is on both doors. We can't get in. And that meant obviously he was in there. So I authorized the unit to call me back and I said, you call me back immediately when you get into my house. And they didn't. And I knew that meant they had to call the police. So I was driving this whole time. And then I got a call from a policeman in Chicago, and it was raining, and he said, I need you to pull off to the side of the road. And I said, no, I need to get back. I won't. And he calmly, I'm sure 6 to 8 times, said, you're pulling off the side of the road. And I said, I need to get back. And he said, no, you don't need to get back.
Oh, my gosh.
Now I will say nothing more to you until you pull off to the side of the road.
Oh, wow. What year was this? How long ago was this?
Earl's death would have been 11 years ago.
So what was going through your head when the cop is telling you that and you're driving and
I knew the whole ride he was dead.
Oh.
I just had a sense. I just didn't have the proof to that. Earl was a jeweler, and there was a large safe in the house. And I said, please see if the safe is locked. Because I wanted to know that there was no, I knew they said he was lying on the floor. And I said, will you check to see if there's been a robbery? There was none. The policeman said, it looks to be natural causes. And I had a sense of exactly what it was. I knew that he played around. He would eat things with sugar and then use medicine, insulin, to lower the blood sugar. And then I'd have to go wake him up. So I knew that it was high-low blood sugars was my guess. And that's what it turned out to be. And
wow.
So then I notified his family, his best friend, 2 or 3 of my friends, and they were all here. His family wasn't, but 2 of my friends were here. 3 of my friends were here when I got back home. I called the funeral home, and because the policeman told me to tell them who would be picking him up, and I, guessed Weinstein, and that was all organized when he came in, and then Bob and one of them came up into the apartment with me. So they hadn't been there, so I saw him on the floor. And
wow. So you walked into the scene.
I walked into the scene. They, our condo, because he had been dead a little bit over a day, they advised us to use I called them the hazmat team, but they were an aftermath team, because people's bodies emit toxins and, of course, feces and all sorts of things that happen when somebody dies. And they came in, and for the most part, I couldn't get into a little while.
So Beckie, was his death within that year of you deciding that you were going to put 100% into the marriage, or where did that fall?
What happened was things got a little bit better, and he by then was having so many different challenges that I just I had this is going to sound really weird. I don't really talk about this much, but I'm sure, Mel, I've used the phrase with you. People will say sometimes I didn't get you in Earl. And I had a sense after I was in this relationship that I was there to learn some things about myself and to give. I was there because he was going to need me. And also there were things I needed to learn. I needed to be a better partner. I needed to be a more patient person. I needed, and I did learn those things. I am certainly a better partner to my current husband. And the problem was that I had 3 deaths in a row. A year my best friend who was amazing for life, died surprisingly, and then Earl died surprisingly, and then my mother died after Earl. So I had 3 deaths in a
Wow.
year and a half, and kind of my body created an autoimmune disease to kind of punish me, or how I worked through it all. I didn't want to lose my home, move my piano. And so I hold my stress inside. If I could tell anybody to not do that, I've told you not to do that. And I and now in COVID-19, having an autoimmune stress-induced, the actual diagnosis for what happened to me after Earl's death and during my mother's final couple of months was stress-induced plaque psoriasis, which turned into my doctor, who was also a musician too on the side, said, I will never take you off of these drugs because you're a piano player. And this will turn into, it's now in your blood systems, in your cells. It will become chronic. And he said, I am sure you will develop a psoriatic arthritis. So I developed a stress-induced disease that attacks the thing I love to do more than anything in life, which is play piano.
That's so rude.
That's, I think, fascinating.
And so Anita is a physical therapist, so she knows all the medical sorts of things. Anita, have you heard of this before?
I've never heard of it being called stress-induced, but I totally think that can happen. You know what I'm saying? Our bodies take the energy that we give them, and they can do all sorts of crazy things. But yeah, that's crazy just to think about the psoriatic arthritis too. Yeah.
I had started some challenges with asthma, and that doctor said to me, Beckie, this is adult-induced, like stress-induced, I can't remember the term now, something asthma.
Yeah. It's so interesting where our bodies hold things and the reasons why they hold things. So you had a ton of stress because you had a lot of deaths, and then of course like continuing to work. Now I know when Scott died, I was exhausted. Did you feel some of that exhaustion after Earl died?
Yes, but I went back to work playing for somebody 2 days after the funeral. I took time off.
Wow.
I took no time to recover. I could go to the gig. I could play beautifully, but I could not talk to people before. And the minute I left, people all wanted to come up and talk to me and say, "Oh, how you doing? Da da da. I'm so sorry." And I would run out of the theater or the concert or wherever I was playing for a year, and I would sit sometimes in my bedroom in the dark. And one night I turned on right after Roy died, who was my best friend. I turned all the lights off, and every TV show that I had on had a mutual friend of ours that he had always kind of a crush on. And I would flip the channel, and there was Cold Case, and Dee Dee was on Cold Case. And I flipped the channel, and it was SVU, and there Dee Dee was a special guest on SVU. And so I was introverted and tired a lot.
I can relate to that. It's like you spent your wad on the performance, and it's like, I'm done. I got nothing else. I can't talk to you. I can't have any more stimulus, any more input. I just got to go and be like, that was all I had to give, and now I'm done.
Yeah. That's how I was too, Beckie. That songbook week that we did the year after Scott died, do you remember? All I could do was like play for my kids. And then that's it. I couldn't like hang and talk to any of you or anything. It just was, man. Yeah, it's like you have emotional dollars.
Yeah.
Right? You have to get them. You spend them doing what you absolutely have to do, which, like, of course, to us is like working. But like talking, no way, man. I guess I'm like that anyway. But
another thing I admired about you is that you lived in. I felt guilty. I was tired. I felt guilty that I was leaving friends down who so desperately wanted to give me love. And I would put that internally into my body. I felt guilt about not being happy in the marriage. And, I certainly never wanted Earl ever dead. But I had wanted to not necessarily be married to him, and then now I wasn't. And so I admired that week at Songbook with you because you got your job done. And there was one night you came in and said, just can you listen to what I've created for this person, this singer? You asked for help when you needed it. That was not something I did very well, and now I'm much better at it. There were blessings in being a widow that by the time you had lost Scott, life had given me a hard case of perspective on that blessings would come down the road. And you were not in that place, yet you owned where you were. You still do. And that's something I admire about your experience with grief. And Anita, I don't know yours. But I think that's where people.
I'm way better than Mel. That's all I care about is just beating somebody else. So.
She is. Oh, well, Becky, just so you know, Anita is a runner and a triathlon. What do you call it? A triathlete?
Yeah.
And she's won like all sorts of things. And I'm like, man, well, I got out of bed today. So Anita wins. Hey, Becky, I have an interesting question for you because I noticed changes in this with me in my music. After you had all those deaths, did you notice a change in your music or how you played music or how you felt music?
I would say no, because I always felt music in my body. I always played from my heart, sometimes more than my head. I would say that the one thing, and it was not just in all the deaths, it was in the ongoing autoimmune joint crap. I have a blessing in the fact that my team of doctors, we know what is the priority with me. Literally, if there's a question, are these drugs affecting my liver? Are these the game plan for my healing team is always keep her playing piano as long as you can, if not till the day she dies. And so that when you're judging what you're going to do with your medicines, if your team thinks you should go to Puerto Vallarta when coronavirus is going around, how everything is just how you assimilate back after the pandemic. The literal point in every moment in my life with anybody that has to add on to my team because, different things happen, is always keep her playing piano, because I had to pick that. And the one doctor who I trust with my life, I call Dr. Dreamy, Dr. Meyerhorn, is a dermatologist. Oh, he's a cutie. He plays drums too. But my dermatologist knows more about me than any of my other doctors and is very invested, which means now my other doctors have, I have their home phone numbers, their cell numbers. They joke about the fact. This new liver guy goes, we have to give Becky a phone number because all of her doctors call her friends or go to her shows. And so, so I'm grateful for that.
I'm not surprised.
And I would say the challenge in all of that is, the other blessing is that I am so, even in this pandemic, I am so grateful when I can touch at the piano and I feel alive and less scared. Aww. And sometimes being at the piano for you didn't make you less scared. A bathtub, sometimes bathtub and ylang oil.
Yes.
Yes. Or a hammock for your neck to take your stress off your neck, which I'm going to buy. I'm going to find one of those.
Oh my gosh, Becky, I just ordered a traction machine for my neck.
Of course you did.
Yeah, I know. So, one thing about you, Becky, when anybody sees you play, you exude joy like nobody I've ever seen when you play and when you're performing. So it's really easy to feel that from you, and you're smiling and you're connected. And even when you're listening to others' performance, you seem to genuinely enjoy and connect to what they're doing as well. So you are such a joy to be around.
That was not
when you are in your element.
And that was before everybody died, and it's continued after everybody died. It was a little weak in the interim, right when everything was really raw.
I love that, because that's what you've decided, or that's what you've been able to use. It sounds kind of like a coping, mechanism too, is just that music has always brought you comfort and happiness. So I'm happy that it didn't go away.
Maybe running does that for you. And that's what you want to excel at, because it gives you some control over when everything feels out of control, I think, for me.
Yes, and my kids.
This is my favorite thing to discuss with you.
Tell me, what is it?
One of my favorite things. I do enjoy tacos and cheese and dogs. This is about how you cannot pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars for a phone plan, especially when you're a widow, your person is dead, you might have kids, you might need another option, and you just want your phone to work, you want unlimited texting and service, and you want it to be like $25 a month.
It blows my mind that they have plans that start at $15 a month. That is so cheap. And the cool thing is it uses other 5G networks, and so you don't have to pay extra for that, and you still get great service.
Yep, Anita and I have traveled all over, and I have used my phone. So I highly recommend it. And my mom's even on it. When my dad died, we put his phone down to the cheapest plan, which is $15 a month. And I think my mom's on the $20 a month plan, and it's so worth it. It's so much cheaper than what we were all paying before. So I highly recommend it. If you're on a budget or not, who cares? Ryan Reynolds is in charge of the company, and they send you free stickers with Ryan Reynolds temporary tattoos. It's kind of the best. So if somebody wants to sign up, what can they do, Anita?
Go to trymintmobile.com/WWDN. Seriously, you guys, such a great idea. Save yourself some money.
And if you're worried about losing data or having any changes with your phone, not going to happen. They walk you through it. Everything's fine. It's the easiest process of all time. Again, that's
trymintmobile.com/WWDN.